Data Doesn't Lie, your go-to for the science behind the art of parenting. Hi guys, welcome to Data Doesn't Lie. This week we will be talking about how the human-animal interaction benefits both humans and animals, but in particular humans, and how we can continue to enjoy that while paying attention to both parties, humans and animals. So I'm gonna go grab a cup of coffee and we'll dig in as soon as I get back. So I don't think I was even ready, as an adult, I don't think I was ready for the responsibilities that came with being a pet owner. And I recall this one day, it was actually about this time last year. I just split up with my then fiance. I had a terrible shift at work, just in the sense of a lot of patients, very sick kids. I think probably was the day that I think one of my kiddos coded. Long day at work. Suffice it to say, I barely had time to come home. My plan had been to come home, shower, change, eat something, go back. And when I came, I see my daughter, see my mom, and then go back to work. And then when I came home, I was like, oh, I haven't seen Lula Lula is my dog. I haven't seen her since the morning before, because just being at work, my mom was letting her in and out and stuff like that. Anywho, so I'm like, oh, let me check on her and take her out for a walk and stuff before I go back, just to clear my head too, right? So, because I enjoy spending time with her. And as we went on our walk, she was sick. She started having like bloody stools or something, and I just remember thinking, I'm so tired. She's sick. My daughter wasn't feeling well. She had a fever. I have to rush back to work. My kids at work weren't feeling well. I was just at my lowest point. I took her to, suffice to say, I took her to the pet emergency. Turns out she was fine. She must have just eaten something wrong. But then at that point, at my lowest point, I was like, I think something's got to give, right? And I actually considered putting her up for in a pet shelter, or putting her up for adoption, pet adoption, if I realized there is such a thing. But then my thought at the time was that I wanted to do better for her. Like, what's the sense of being a pet owner if you can't spend time with your pet, right? And I was barely here. But I think coming through that, I sort of restructured my life, and I restructured our space with her in the house, because she's no longer an indoor animal, and spending our time going on walks and making sure I can take her on a walk every day and things like that. So just restructuring my life such that I can accommodate every part of it has just made our balance work. And I can see how my daughter interacts with her, and I see how much joy she has from, like, when she meets other dogs or meets other pets or cats, how easily she interacts with them. She hugs them, she pets them, and I can tell that by having a dog of our own, we've benefited immensely. And I love it. I love Lula to death. So that was kind of what made me want to talk about this, and also that it is National Pet Safety Day. So that's where this is coming from. So let's just look at the data. What do we know about human-animal interactions? The earliest data is as far back as 1980, and it's probably the data that supports the human-animal interaction benefits the strongest. So it showed that pet ownership showed a significant positive association between pet ownership and 1 year survival following a hospitalization from coronary heart disease. And the other thing that had shown a significant positive effect in that particular study was also social support. Every other thing they corrected for didn't have a positive benefit on that. So then sometime right after that, maybe in the early 90s, the researchers at the National Institute for Child Health and Human Development convened 2 international conferences to sort of look at what research was being done in the area, and they found not much, and they served to set out a roadmap for what research should be done. Fast forward 20 years after that, in the 2000s, early 2000s or mid 2000s, another conference, international conference, was again convened, and they found that they hadn't made barely any advancement in research in this particular area. So a lot of the articles that I'm looking up are coming from like 2011 onwards, and they show pretty interesting data. So I'll just kind of like put it out there and touch on what each article I came across said. So there was one 2011, I think, that talked about showing the benefits of pets in cardiovascular health, and they showed that cortisol levels were decreased in adults after being exposed to pets. And we know that cortisol levels are increased, or chronic stress, chronic psychological stress causes cortisol to be significantly produced. So it goes to reason that if you have a pet and the pet can decrease cortisol levels, then your sense of chronic stress also decreases. So it improves your perception of what stress you're going through. There's another paper that had children self-reporting what emotions they felt with pets. So the children said things like they felt safe, they felt loved, they felt a companion they could confide in, someone they could play with, things like that. The other benefit is decreased distress in children. So visits from therapy animals show to decrease distress in children and decrease the sense of post-op pain. So we're now using so there are therapeutic interventions, or in certain hospitals or certain clinical settings, where animals are used to help decrease the stress as well as the perception of pain in children. Another benefit is social interaction. So we all know pets improve the degree to which and the frequency to which we interact with each other, and this benefit transcends race, culture, physical appearance, socioeconomic status, just across the board. Pets improve social interaction, and if they can improve social interaction, we know that social interaction goes hand in hand with a sense of well-being and self-esteem. So improving social interaction also improves these things. So pet ownership and pet interaction improves a sense of social well-being, and this as a whole, I think, has a bigger effect, because if we're happier people, if we're more confident people, if we're people who interact more with our neighbors and each other, you can imagine the social glue that holds us together would be stronger. So it builds stronger communities, it builds more resilient communities, in my opinion. So on a social scale, pets are very important. The other way that pets can benefit us is actually in the school setting, in educational settings. And there were a number of papers, even though these particular studies weren't done in a randomized control manner, for example, they noted that children had a fast rate of learning certain tasks when that task was associated with a pet, as opposed to a stuffed animal or a toy. So the way children read aloud or read back or repeated a task, or if they were reading to an animal, if they were asked to jump with a dog or run after a dog or things like that. So it did show benefit in child development, particularly in language skill development. That was a particular area of development that it did show improvement in. So that's another benefit that, pets bring us. The other thing that pets would do for us is they just in general, they are companions, right? They, especially for those on the other end of their life where they've experienced, or the more experienced ones amongst us who have experienced a full life, and we may not have as many friends around left to spend time with. Pets are beautiful companions. They're very loyal animals, especially dogs, because I'm a dog person. Yeah, I'm not particularly fond of cats, but dogs are very loyal, so they offer us companionship. Now, the thing to be, I guess, aware of and conscious of is the fact that pets don't they don't, I mean, any interaction with any animal comes with, you know, risks as well as benefits. So what risk are we facing when we are interacting with animals, that human-animal interaction? So the first one that a lot of people have brought up is allergens and allergies, and the data in itself is very controversial. There's a lot of there are quite a few articles out there that would say that exposure to furry animals in the early years of life decrease the risk of asthma and atopic disease, and there are as many papers that say exposure to animals in furry animals in the early years of life increase that risk. So looking at the papers across board, the conclusion is controversial, but I can tell you that one thing that remains true is in the last 60 years, where especially in the United States, where animals have become a big part of our society, but not only that, a big part of our household, living in the household with us. The prevalence of allergy and atopic disease has increased. It's increased. Now, you could argue that there is no cause and effect relationship, but it's happening. The other thing, and because of this, and because of the, even though there are as many articles out there that would say that exposure to animals in the early years of life don't increase allergy and atopic disease, those that do support that data have stronger evidence behind them, or at least more rigorous forms of study or research study behind them. So I would tend to believe those. The one thing that I actually thought was pretty well done was because someone could also argue that you have hypoallergenic dogs or cats, and that would, for those who want pets, that would decrease your risk of getting atopic disease. And actually there's data out there, again, one of the articles I looked at that showed that the concept of hypoallergenic animals is not what we think it is. It's those animals did shed as much allergens in the house dust mite that we have around as equal as animals who were thought to be allergic, normal shedding other animals. So it doesn't make a difference, is the point, unfortunately. So the things that we risk are atopic disease. As humans, what we risk is atopic disease, infections, so zoonotic infections that can go from an animal to a human. That's what it comes down to. So we have to, in order to be safe, we have to make sure that our pets have their vaccines, that we acquire them or obtain them from reputable sources, and that we keep them up to date, and we take care of them, right? We take care of them, we watch what they're eating, where they sleep, keep them clean, and things like that. So as much as they benefit us, we have to take care of them too. The last big category of risk that we face is risk of injury. So falls, for example, from a horse, so when a dog dumps on you, or bites again, or scratches from a cat or a dog. And a lot of these, you can't tell when it's going to happen, right? But how to help prevent it? One, help by making sure that all our animals are up to date with their immunizations. Two, I know my daughter likes to walk up to people's dogs and like pet them and touch them and things like that. So I always ask permission from a pet owner. Is it okay? Is it safe? Has she ever bitten somebody else before I let her do that? So I would say that's a good way to be safe too. The last thing I would touch on actually is the fact that as much as there's human risk to owning a pet, there's also pet risk to owning a human, right? Because like I mentioned with my story, I got to the point where I thought that I considered giving her up, and I'm glad I didn't, because it was a hurdle. We went through it together. I feel like we've both grown. She's matured. She's calmer. She's not as feisty as she was when she was a puppy. So the risk the pets face is being given up for adoption or put in a shelter or just abandoned, right? And that's not good for them. They lose a home, they lose a family, and those things are it's very traumatic for them, for pets too. So I would just caution everyone, before you make that decision, give it a lot of thought. for your family, for your situation, for the structure in which you're in. And that's kind of all I have for you guys this week. I don't have much else, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Have a good week.